As the old saying goes, crime never pays, and never has that been so graphically illustrated as in this first case. Used in just about anything, copper theft isn't exactly rare due to its high value when recycled. With prices high and demand strong, it's popular among thieves who cut it, melt it, and sell it for cash. That is, of course, assuming they live long enough to sell it. On the 12th of April 2008, 43-year-old Kirk John Thompson, along with two accomplices, broke into the derelict Panteg Steelworks in Pontypool, South Wales, to steal copper wiring. They had been there a few days earlier to scope it out. After a wave of theft attempts at the site, including one incident where someone cut through a cable with an axe, hitting a live wire, power to much of the site was shut off, but not all of it. At around 4 AM, Thompson removed a metal guard covering one of the cables and got to work with his bolt cutters. As mentioned, much of the site was powered down after the axe incident, with only low voltage lines in most areas. Unfortunately for Thompson though, the wire he chose ran to the substation and was directly connected to the national power grid. According to a Wales Online article, after cutting into it, he was electrocuted by 11,000 volts of electricity. His two companions tried to carry his body from the scene, a noble effort, briefly, but when they thought they'd been spotted, they unceremoniously dropped his body and fled. Police arrested them later. Thompson's sister told an inquest her brother was unemployed, and that while he had a history of substance use, he'd been totally clean for the previous 8 months. However, a toxicology report showed highly illicit substances in his bloodstream that were consistent with recent abuse. Rocky the Stunt Bear was a 4-year-old grizzly, born and raised to perform staged attacks for the big screen with his trainer and Hollywood stunt double, Randy Miller. He was a regular on the Discovery and National Geographic channels, among other appearances. But he was most famous for his stint in the 2008 blockbuster film Semi-Pro, starring alongside Hollywood funny man Will Ferrell. However, 7 weeks on from the film's release, Rocky would again take the spotlight. This time, after someone wanted to wrestle him. It did not end well. Predators in Action was a wildlife park in California unlike any other. Its animals were TV stars, bred and trained for the big screens of Hollywood. The founder of Predators in Action was the charismatic Randy Miller, who wasn't just a trainer, but often acted as a stunt double on set with the animals, appearing on such blockbuster hits as Gladiator. One such movie star was the 700-pound, 7.5-foot stunt grizzly called Rocky. Rocky was trained to perform a fake attack on his human co-star and specialized in scenes where he could wrestle with his human trainer. In 2007, he landed his biggest gig, appearing in the Hollywood blockbuster film Semi-Pro. On the 22nd of April 2008, roughly 2 months since the release of the film, 39-year-old Stefan Miller, cousin to Randy, requested to shoot an advertisement at the park with Rocky, wrestling the 700-pound apex predator. Randy agreed to the stunt as, although Stefan had not trained Rocky, he had worked at the park in the past and the two were familiar. The plan was to take shots of Stefan and Rocky standing side by side before staging a wrestling match in front of the cameras. However, Rocky moved into his attack maneuver sooner than expected, latching onto Stefan and catching him off guard. Randy responded by striking the bear with a cane stick to stop the attack. The bear, surprisingly, was not calmed or deterred by this and had to be pepper sprayed to get him off. In a short, sharp burst of aggression, the moment shifted from a choreographed wrestling stunt to a brief, unscheduled lesson in food chain hierarchy. Unfortunately for Stefan, although the attack lasted only 10 seconds, one bite had pierced his jugular vein and main artery. Following Stefan's death, California's Department of Fish and Game investigated the attack, to decide if Rocky should be euthanized. In the end, though, both the coroner's office and the California Department of Fish and Game agreed that being a bear and acting like one was not a punishable offense. He was banned from further work in TV and movies, but wasn't put down. At around 8:15 p.m. on the 3rd of February 1990, a 33-year-old man died at Harborview Medical Center after receiving 7 wounds by gunshot. However, he had not been the victim of a hideous crime or an unfortunate accident. Rather, it was the result of something he had done earlier, which was, to put it gently, not the brightest. At around 4:30 p.m. earlier that day, 33-year-old David Zarbak had walked into H&J Leather and Firearms, a gun store in the Renton Highlands area of Washington state. If robbing a gun store wasn't already a bad idea, there were clues that on this day, it was an even worse day than usual to try it. Parked outside the H&J Leather and Firearms was a marked police car. The officer who drove it there, inside, drinking coffee with the owner before his shift. A clearly marked cop car out front and a uniformed officer inside might have been a good reason to abort the mission. In the case of David Zarbak, however, it wasn't. According to a Seattle Times article, he entered the gun store, passed the other customers and announced the robbery. He advised everyone to put their hands on the counter and threatened to shoot anyone who moved. That's when he saw the officer. It should have been a warning. Instead, he fired. It was at that point that the problem with robbing a gun store became clear. It's full of guns and, more importantly, people who know how to and are willing to use them. The officer and the store clerk responded immediately. Ammunition on the counter was caught in the crossfire and much of it exploded. Other customers pulled out their own guns but didn't shoot, and while Zarbak proved to have terrible aim, hitting no one, by the time it was over, he had been shot 7 times. He was taken to Harborview Medical Center in critical condition, where he died later that evening. Now, for a 2-for-1 combo to finish up with. We've come from living in caves to building planes, satellites, and skyscrapers, and now, apparently, we've come even further. To the point where taking dangerous photos in high places, often while doing dumb stuff, has become a global obsession. Some chase the perfect shot, others die chasing it. On the 29th of June 2016, 2 tourists in Peru, in 2 different locations, would make almost the same mistake. 51-year-old German tourist Oliver Paps was exploring Machu Picchu with his tour group in the Peruvian Andes. The trail led them to the summit of the mountain, overlooking the ruins of the ancient citadel. The Machu Picchu, perched at 7,900 feet above sea level, is one of the most visited sites in South America. Although originally a temple to the sun, it's now, in more recent times, a shrine to group selfies and hiking shoes. Oliver Paps, perhaps inspired by the fresh mountain air or a brief lapse in evolutionary progress, crossed a safety barrier and stepped into a restricted area near the edge of the cliff. Wanting to be snapped while jumping, he asked a fellow German tourist to take the photo. An eyewitness on the day said he remarked, "I'm going to jump in the air, take the photo for me as a memory." But as he handed over the camera, he lost his balance and fell, plunging to his death 650 feet into the ravine below. Strangely, this kind of thing wasn't even unique to that day. Apparently, the 29th of June 2016 was International Ignore the Edge Day. That very same day, in the very same country, 28-year-old South Korean tourist Kim Jong-yeob was visiting Gokta Waterfall deep in Peru's Amazon jungle. Trying to find the right angle for a photo, he slipped and fell 1,600 feet to the base of the waterfall. That's all the stories for today's video. If you enjoy lesser-known and fact-driven disaster storytelling, I'd love it if you considered subscribing and joining me for the next one. And, as always, thanks for watching.